Okay. So, shall we get started, Sheriff Murphy?
Sure. Everybody's on? Everybody's ready?
Yep.
All
That's it.
right. All right. Well, thanks for taking the time and thanks for calling yesterday. As it worked out, I had a few things this afternoon that I was going to do, or I had some meetings, Zoom meetings. It seems like that's all I'm doing is Zoom meetings, but I had those planned and they kind of fell through. So it was perfect timing because tomorrow and next week don't look good at all. So it actually worked out very well. But with that being said, and as we talked yesterday, more than happy to talk to anybody in the county. I've always enjoyed, especially going out and meeting with groups, and especially when it's an opportunity for me to talk about my office and the different programs that we have. Not so much when I didn't enjoy it so much when I was doing the heroin forums that we were doing when we were really in the midst of a horrible heroin epidemic, which knock on wood, I'm cautious to say that, it's better, but it's not as bad as it could be. I don't think if it wasn't for a lot of people that joined on when we started the Hometown versus Heroin Committee. So yeah, it's nice to be able to have any kind of public forum where we can talk about our office and the different things that we do, because it really, honestly, I think a lot of people within the county and in counties across the state really don't know what their law enforcement agencies, whether it's sheriff's offices or local police or whatever, do when it comes to community relations and when it comes to things specifically like that are included in the executive order. So that's why when the governor issued the executive order, to be quite honest with you, there was some pushback from some sheriffs. As you may or may not know, I'm the president of the State Sheriff's Association currently this year. And there were some sheriffs that didn't like the way that the governor issued the executive order related to police reform. But I thought it was important, especially, at that time, and I still feel the same way, that's not the stance that we should take as sheriffs, and it's not the response that we should have. We should use that opportunity that we have to look at ourselves, look at our agency, see how we do things, get input from the public. I think that's a good thing that's in the order. And I think that it's a good opportunity for sheriffs, and especially, I feel like I pat our office on the back a lot when I talk to people about this, but especially offices like mine, where we've worked so hard to provide professional law enforcement services to the people that we serve. And I think that's something that we started when I was elected in 2011. And when I took office in January of 2012, we started with the motto, community first. We put that motto, the slogan, on all of our cars. We put it on all of our letterhead. We had group meetings with our patrol staff, and we told them, this is how we want to approach policing in Washington County. We want to police with the community first, with the community in mind. And, I brought up, used an analogy like, our contact might be with a woman who is in her kitchen pacing back and forth on her phone, deciding whether or not to call the sheriff's office because she doesn't want to bother us with what she thinks might be a minor complaint. And when she finally gets up to the courage to call, the last thing we want to do is make her feel like she shouldn't be calling us with a minor complaint. And I used, things like that. Or if you see someone building a new house or a new business opening, you should stop and introduce yourself and say that you patrol that area and that, we're there to help if you have any issues with your residents. So I have to say that our deputies, our investigators, and command staff, everybody bought into that concept, and we kind of grew from there. And we started a lot of different community programs that we continue to do today, and it's only made us better. And I get far more compliments than any complaints. I hardly get any complaints. I honestly don't, from the public, which is always a good indicator. And everywhere I go, I hear praise about interactions that the public has had with our officers, and to me, it's a validation that we're trying to do the right thing.
Yep.
We're certainly not perfect, And that's where the executive order comes in, where no matter how good any sheriff thinks that their office is, it can always be better. And one way that we can get better is by having public input, having meetings like this, and communicating with the public, because we certainly don't want the only interaction to be when someone gets stopped for a traffic infraction, or if we get called to someone's house for some type of complaint. We'd much rather have it be under circumstances that we're engaging with the community as to what the community needs are and what we can do to better serve them. So with all that being said, we've been working on the executive order since June, since it came out. One of the first things we did is look at our training, and we do a lot of training. And I'm happy to say that, as a law enforcement accredited agency in New York, we're required to provide at least 21 hours minimum per deputy per year. We do far more than that. In fact, I've updated our the latest. Just to be clear, the guideline that we provided online, the guide for the survey that we have, is actually going to be the template for our plan. So I'm going to use that guideline and change it, slide by slide, and kind of take each section of the executive order and then explain how we either already meet that requirement or how we intend to meet that requirement. So along those lines, we started a whole bunch of different community programs and to deal with everything we could think of, and they're listed in the PowerPoint. I think Lieutenant Lemry, I think you're on. If you could pop that PowerPoint up, I'll just think you can. So that's obviously the first slide is the same as what's on there. The next slide I think is as well. Yep, and I think I provided you right with a PDF of what I submitted to the Public Safety Committee back in October, which kind of explains a little bit more too. So if we could just go down to it's a couple more slides there. Yeah, hold on right there, because this is a question I talked with Alan about yesterday. One of the misconceptions I think that was put in the media anyways is that, and I wasn't happy with that article, by the way, because I spent
You made that clear.
yeah, 40 minutes on the phone with the reporter, and I kind of I told him all the same things I pretty much just told you, and in fact, and especially about the executive order, how we're taking it seriously. And we only had one Zoom meeting, and it was really an organizational meeting, so I didn't think it would be appropriate to have the public chiming in during an organizational meeting when the stakeholders didn't even know what their role was going to be or what the executive order entailed. So I had to kind of explain the executive order and what we were going to do. But this is a timeline, and actually it doesn't really start in August, because we started in June, like I said, looking at our training. So one of the first things we did training wise was we offered anti-racial bias training and de-escalation training, and we trained everyone in that. And we hadn't had that training before. So as far as the executive order goes, that training was a good thing that we did, and it came out of the executive order. So that'll be something that's included in our plan, is that we'll try to provide that training annually for all deputies. And then, as you can see, in September, we continued to review our current policies. We did more training, and then we did de-escalation training, which involved simunitions, which are like pellet pistol type equipment, where we had role playing with deputies and investigators and command staff in various situations like domestic violence cases or things like that, or encounters where someone appeared to be armed and they had to decide whether to use force, and if so, what kind of force. So that was important training that we did. And again, it was kind of in response to the executive order. In October, we drafted initial proposals, and I presented that document that I sent to you yesterday to our Public Safety Committee to let them know that we were on this. We've been working on it. And then now, here in November, we had one stakeholders meeting, and we distributed the public survey. Public survey took a little while to come up with. We wanted to cover different areas that we thought would be helpful to the office, and also be topics that the public would want to comment on. We left the option on the survey for people to, a free form section where they could write in whatever they wanted, and also where they could voice their opinion as to, what kind of job we're doing and what we could do better, or maybe what we're missing or whatever. So that the misconception about that article was that we were rushing through this process, when in reality the process started in June. So we've been doing this for 5 months, to date. And I can tell you for a fact, I put a lot of time into. I know this, it looks like a PowerPoint, which it is obviously, but the document that I sent you. But we have, put a lot of time into taking this seriously, and have what I think is a plan that will be used by. And I've already, I've had a lot of different agencies request our plan so that they could use it as a template. So very proud of that. And I think that going forward, it's just going to continue. So then in December, we're going to compile the public survey results, because the date that we asked that the survey be back is December 4th. So I think it gave, without looking right at the calendar, I think it was a 2 to 3 weeks for the survey to be completed. And that, and obviously, like I was talking with Alan yesterday, if we get surveys back on December 6th, 7th, or 8th, it doesn't mean we're not going to count. We're not going to look at them. We're certainly going to look at them, but we need time to get that data and put it together and have it make sense for us, so that we can have a public hearing in December, which would be on the 18th for the Board of Supervisors, the third Friday of every month. And at the public hearing, people will be able to
I think you froze up.
to see this, because it's a work in progress, I'd like to say. And I think maybe the connection was a little unstable there for a second.
Yeah, we lost you for a minute.
Okay. So what I'm going to do is update this plan, in other words, and put it on our webpage so that people can see the plan as it goes forward. And then after the public hearing, if there's nothing major that has come up, or during the process of people reviewing the plan, there's a possibility that there could be a resolution then. But if not, then in January, we would make any necessary changes or do anything we had to do, and look at the possibility of a resolution in January. When I was talking, I was talking with the Post-Star yesterday, and the reporter said, well, it doesn't have to, Sheriff, this doesn't have to be until April 1st. So why do you have January, in your timeline? And I said, well, every project has to have a goal date. We hope that this is how this works. It's like if you're building a house, you want to have it done by January. Well, it might not be. So the last thing we want to do is spend time in January and February trying to get something done, for March, when April 1st is our deadline. So we have a January goal. We hope that we can get the resolution in January. If not, maybe it'll be February. So, but whatever it takes that we have to do to comply with the order, we hopefully will use all the data that, from the public and everything, and have it done in January. That's our goal date. So I'm not sure. I don't have it up on my screen, but I'm just going to pause for a second in case anybody had any questions about that timeline.
Yeah, I did, Sheriff. Rick Hoffman from Easton. Glad to meet you, and thanks for taking the time to meet with us, by the way, and Alan for arranging all this. So are you somewhat flexible on the timeline? Because I think one of the things that some of us have talked about is that the survey's fine, but we're concerned that there be more input from some of the groups that have a lot of interaction with law enforcement, and that whether or not that's occurred, I'm not sure, but I guess I'm hearing you say that possibly there is some flexibility on your timeline there if we were able to engage some of these other community groups in getting input as to their feelings about and experiences with law enforcement.
Oh yeah, and that's why, like December 4th, like I said, that's when the survey has to be back, but it doesn't mean that that's when the public input's going to end.
Right.
We just had to have a date where, because we don't put a time limit on it,
Sure.
we would never get them back. So that's why I'm saying, like, if we're able to do it in December and after our public hearing is fine, I don't anticipate that's going to happen. I'd rather have public input during a hearing in December and then take, January to go over everything that we've learned either from the survey or from the public hearing or from other meetings like this. Honestly, I mean, it's not, I like it did. The one good thing that came out of yesterday's article in the paper was that I'm willing to meet with anybody. I certainly am. So I hope that would, the point that you're making that, everybody, I think that, I don't think there's not anybody that's unaware that this is going on. It's been pretty highly publicized, and every town supervisor. That's why I engaged them in this process, is so that we could reach every town in the county, and have the survey be available at every town hall in the county. I thought that would be a good idea to geographically at least cover all areas of the county. So as it goes forward, we'll make more public announcements that, in fact, when we update the survey, or I'm sorry, not the survey, when we update the plan on the webpage, we'll certainly make a note that we'll do it either through social media or local media, that the plan has been updated so that people can take a look at it. Because it's a working draft of what we want to do.
Yeah. Yep. Thank you.
Yep. Yes, Alan.
Yeah. Before I make my comment, we'd like to do some quick introductions so you know who's on the call.
Oh, sure. Yeah, that makes sense.
So if everybody could unmute yourselves and introduce yourselves. I think most everyone else on the call knows me. I'm Alan Stern. I'm the chair of the Democratic Committee in Washington County, and just pass it on around. Bill, you're still muted, so do you want to take yourself off mute and tell us who you are?
I'm Rick Hoffman, Town of Easton.
Okay.
I'm Robin Lyle. I live in Argyle, and I'm one of the vice chairs of the Washington County Democratic Committee. Good to meet you, Sheriff Murphy.
Nice to meet you.
Annie, take yourself off mute. Still can't hear you. Bill, you've got to get off mute.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Can you hear me now? Okay, Ann Townsend. I live in Jackson, and I'm co-organizer of the Silent Vigils every Saturday in Maury Park in Greenwich, supporting and honoring Black lives.
And Bill. Can't hear you yet.
Hello?
Bill. There you go.
Oh, boy, I don't know. Let me try one more time.
We can hear you now.
Now you're muted again, Bill.
All right, how about
There you go.
now?
Yes.
Hi, I'm Bill Brown, Town of Easton, co-chair of the vigil in Maury Park, Greenwich, for Black Lives Matter.
Nice to meet you.
Gary, I think everybody
For you.
knows who you are, but do you want to say hi?
Hi, I'm Carrie Warner, Assemblywoman from the 113th Assembly District. Chris, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Chris Garofano. I work for Assemblywoman Warner.
I'm really glad we had this opportunity. And Sheriff Murphy, once again, I want to echo what Rick just said. Thank you for taking my call yesterday. That was a great conversation we had then, and for doing this with us. Really appreciate your desire to get community input, and that is one of the things that we really wanted to stress in this meeting. How we recognize and share how important that is, and are concerned that the process of doing the survey, which is fine, limits the input you can get from people who are able to get it, return it to you. And it may not reach all of the people it would be good for you to hear from. So we'd like to talk with you about how to broaden that, and perhaps we can continue to partner. We're already helping to distribute the survey to people for you. We'd like to work with you to maybe develop some more community outreach, some community forums of some kind. The suggested plan that the governor's office sent out listed a whole bunch of stakeholders who are not yet reflected in the outreach you're doing. I have it in front of me because I'd never remember the list, but they're talking about people who may have had interactions with the police, people who have been incarcerated, the LGBTQI community, education officials and administrators, folks like that, mental health professionals. So you've got some of those in the stakeholder list, absolutely. But we'd like to recommend that you broaden that effort, excuse me, to reach as many of these kinds of stakeholders as possible, which will certainly enhance the process for you and provide you with information that you might not get out of a survey.
I was wondering too, Sheriff, if just to follow up with what Alan said, if any people from the Hometown versus Heroin Committee have been included in the stakeholders group, because I know that's the whole drug thing is where a lot of your interactions happen. Are those folks involved in this effort as well?
Yes, and well, we talked to them, and they certainly want to be part of the survey. They want to be.
Okay.
They said they would be part. And just so you know, that that was an organization that I founded.
Yeah, I'm aware of that.
District attorney, yeah, and at the time, Dave Sapper for the Council for Prevention, and boy, I can't tell you how proud I am to say that started with 3 people, now is up over 30, 40 people that are probably on that committee, and they've done some wonderful things, and really have made a difference in a lot of people's lives. So yes, they're. And we have, I can't make a lot of the meetings myself. Now that they're doing it on Zoom, it might be easier, but we make sure we have representation there for sure. And we, consult with them on a regular basis, I should say. So,
yeah.
And that's one of the things, like I said, I miss about, being able to go out and go to talk to different groups is because, we end up doing it like this, but at least we have the ability, but you're right. I mean, there's, and it's hard, like when you said people that have a lot of interactions with law enforcement, it's hard to, like I said, this is out there to the public that we're undertaking this, and it's kind of difficult to look at our RMS, our records management system, for instance, and say, hey, here's a guy we dealt with 30 times. Let's call him and see what he thinks about the plan. Yeah, it's a little bit of a slippery slope there. So,
yeah.
But one way we get kind of input by that is the people that we deal with, like I said, on the street, that we deal with that come into our correctional facility, that reach out to us. Well, when you mentioned the Hometown versus Heroin, and we have people that send me Facebook messages and whatnot that of the positive encounters that they've had with law enforcement. And like I said, it's difficult to undertake a task like this when you've been trying to do the right things, in other words, for 8 years, and you're proud of your agency like I am, and you constantly reevaluate how you're doing things. And I'm not saying that there's something that's not going to come up that's going to change the way that we do things, but I'm very confident in that I can go and talk to any group, regardless. And even if it is, people that we've dealt with many times, that I'm not going to get the same response that we're trying to do the right thing. Yeah. So that's what, so the other way of saying it is, regardless of who the stakeholders are, we definitely want everyone to have a stake in this process.
Well, one of the things I'd like to put on the table, we could help to facilitate some of these. I don't want to bore everyone with my resume, but I spent a career first at the New York State Education Department, where I wrote the federal plan that funded us for special education in New York State. And it has a similar parallel to this. We had certain requirements from the feds that we had to involve stakeholders. We had to hold forums. And I've had a lot of experience with doing those all across the state with all kinds of people. And then after I left the education department, that was my business. I did for 15 years, that kind of thing for private companies, where I would work with their staff, hold focus forums of their staff to identify their issues so that management could react to them and work on them. And that's an offer I'll put out there for you. If you'd like to have us partner with you, that's something we could offer. Take some pressure off of you for having to have all those meetings. we could do them for you. So that's out there.
Yeah, I think that's a really generous offer, Alan, and I'm certainly willing to. I've had meetings all across the state for 20 years with municipalities and other groups, and I could certainly assist you with that.
Yeah, well, maybe, you know, as I said, you know, we're going to update the plan and put it on the webpage, but if you'd like, what we could do is do this, you know, have this type of meeting again, whether it's whatever you think is an appropriate time frame, whether it's 1 week or 2 weeks or whatever, where we could, you know, go over the different things that might have changed since the last time that we talked, because it is a work in progress, and it is something that, you know, the order that the book that the governor put out, 130 something pages. So, you know, it's pretty big, and it's, you know, that we want to make sure that we cover all the different areas. So, you know, that's why it's been a 5-month process. And that's why I think going forward, you know, the more input we have from people like yourself is the better. So I'm open to that for sure, you know, where we could do it on a regular basis and go over where we're at with the plan.
And we'd welcome that. So
Okay.
Consider the offer to help you gather some more input.
Yeah, before we close today, we'll you know, I'll get it on my calendar and we'll take a look and see what we can do. This slide's the same. And like I said, you know, just so you know, I mean, it's rather than reinvent the wheel, what I'm doing is I'm gonna change the slides that say this is a guide and make this actually our plan. But that was so I didn't have 18 documents going on. But I don't know if you've all looked at this or not, but this page deals with use of force. And our use of force policy is on that link, so anyone can. I don't know if you're while you're doing the PowerPoint, you can click on that and actually go to the web page. But that is the link for the web page that will show our use of force policy. That's a policy that frequently is updated. It's a policy that meets or exceeds the New York State DCJS regulation for use of force. It's something that our deputies are trained on annually with use of force. That goes along with firearms and you know, the de-escalation that we just did. So you know, use of force policy requires, for instance, that anytime force is used, that it's reviewed by a supervisor and then sent up through the chain of command. And that's now part of the New York State guidelines, is that all use of force has to be reported online to the state. And we've been doing that for over a year now. And I was actually talking with Carrie last night. There is a frustrating angle to that, is that we can't get, for whatever reason, the statistics from DCJS on what the agency's use of force are across the state. I don't know why. You know, we've from the Sheriff's Association, we've made formal requests, and we just can't get that data. So we're going to keep trying and get the data, but it would certainly be helpful. You know? So our use of force policy, for instance, changed last year, I think it was, to include a duty to intervene. You know, so things that happen nationwide, certainly drive a policy like a use of force policy. And we want to make sure that we are, up to date with that. And that's the link. Thank you, Todd. That's the link to the policy, and that's what the use of force policy is.
Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
When the when the executive order was issued, it was obviously in reaction to the killing of George Floyd. And I think that the primary sense of where police bias might occur is among interactions with people of color. So I wonder if you could talk with us about how you're reaching out to those communities in Washington County, and especially in terms of the survey and getting feedback from them.
Well, Washington County is a big county, and it's a lot of that's done with the executive order, or a lot of what it's based on, in my opinion anyways, is urban type law enforcement policing, that where it says that areas of high crime or areas of where there's a majority of people of color or things like that, for instance, like what you're talking about. And really, we don't have that urban city type crime. We don't see that. We see a rural type of crime like a lot of other counties in New York State see. So it's difficult to answer that, in a way, because we don't really have that urban type setting, I guess is what I'm trying to say. But we do have one of the stakeholders, Mike Jones. He's a Black man from Washington County. He's lived here all his life, business owner, and he's part of the process. So obviously he could probably speak better than I could about that. We've had many conversations.
There is no NAACP in Washington County. Is there?
There is in Glens Falls.
Oh, there is?
Yeah,
Okay.
and I think that office covers, so to speak, Washington County.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
I know
there's
there's in Dresden, Fort Ann, Putnam, those towns are in the Adirondack, in the blue line of the Adirondacks, and there is somebody up there that Nikki Hilton Patterson has started this Adirondack diversity issue. She's a very dynamic, informed Black woman, very articulate. And I'm wondering if she might be of, interest or to the Sheriff's Department in exploring some of these issues regarding people of color. She'd be a fascinating person to get input from. And she's very good.
Yeah, if someone has contact information, if they'd like to reach out and have her join the next Zoom meeting, that'd be great.
Okay. Okay.
I'd like to also encourage some communication with the Hispanic community. We have a lot of migrant workers in Washington County. And anecdotally, I have no data on this at all. Anecdotally, we've heard stories of some of these folks afraid to go out and go to the grocery store or go to the bank for fear. It's not your office, I understand. It's ICE they're afraid of. But it's still interactions with the law enforcement community. It might be very valuable to reach out and get a sense of that population's views of law enforcement in general.
Sure. Yeah, like I said, I'm open to hear from anybody. So.
Okay. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Okay.
And this slide was one that was already in the guideline, but that's kind of what I talked about when we first started. And very proud of the fact, though, that the Department of Justice recognized us in 2016 under the Obama administration, and the fact that we're the only agency in New York State that received that award. So it's kind of validation of our Community First program.
I think that's terrific. I had another question, and I know the executive, and you may not be able to speak to the sheriff, but you're the leading law enforcement officer in our county, and you're doing a great job. But what about the municipal departments? Have you had any interaction with them and their attempts to comply with the executive order, or is that they're just kind of on their own?
Yes, they're on their own, basically. I know Hudson Falls Police have started their process. I think they're the only agency I know of that has had a stakeholder meeting or started the process.
Okay,
Uh,
okay.
And honestly, I thought about making this a county-wide program process, but honestly, we do a lot of stuff. We do a lot of different things, and this really, the executive order, in my opinion, it's up to the responsibility of the chief or the sheriff of different municipalities to do this. And we might do things differently than another agency, for instance. So I wanted to use this opportunity to showcase my office and the things that we do, and not necessarily speak for others.
Okay,
Um,
thank you.
I'd like to ask a question.
Sure.
The data you needed from DCJS, is that something that Assemblywoman Warner could help with, getting that information? Sometimes if they get a letter from an assembly person, they.
I can certainly, Anne, I can certainly ask. I looked for some data from them a couple of weeks ago on a different topic, and it was surprisingly difficult to obtain, but I can certainly ask.
Great, okay, thank you.
Yeah, those are some of that's some of the stuff that's in the executive order. Requires the as far as the community programs, and those are just a list of some of the things that we do. And there's a bigger list that is a few slides down that explains it more. This is a different slide than what's on the webpage, so this has been updated. And it's the start of several slides that deal with training, because we do so much training. You can just go back to that one quick, the one just before that. Thanks. Yeah, so this explains different training that is required under the executive order. And then you can see on the bottom, we broke down how many total hours members receive annually. That's for obviously for the whole department, but we do a lot of training, and we're very fortunate to have the facility that we have. And unfortunately, we can't use our training room like we used to, but we have a very large training room with a lot of technology, and we use that to our advantage, and we train and train and train. So as you can see, it's over 3,000 hours a year, which is way over the 21-hour per employee requirement.
Great.
The next slide, this one shows. I honestly couldn't list all the topics because it's 15 pages, so I had to go alphabetically and take the different topics that our members have been trained in. And those are, and when I put this up, or actually I can send it to you, Alan, and you can distribute it,
I'll send it.
so that we don't have to go through all these. But it's to me, it's again, it's validation that it's a pretty impressive list of different topics that we do. And this is in addition to the regular stuff like radar, for instance, or breathalyzer, or things that cops do on a regular basis. But a lot of the different programs that we're proud of, that we or not programs, but topics that we ensure that our deputies are trained in. And a lot of it, as you can see on this one, like the anti-bias policing parts 1 and 2, that was new due to the executive order, and that's a good training to have, and that's something that we will continue to do. And there's the de-escalation communication, and the de-escalation and minimizing use of force, and that those are obviously important topics. And like I said, we could have done 15 pages, but I think that people would get bored reading all the different topics that we do. And this slide just basically goes over what the topic of anti-bias awareness training covers. And then the de-escalation training that we did, that I explained earlier, because we do want to resolve conflicts, and we want to prevent escalation as much as possible. So those things are reinforced through training like this, and in addition to our annual use of force training as well. And then we recently did training for people with emotionally disturbed persons or substance abuse and autism. It was great training through the Justice Center, and there's actually another slide that explains that a little further. And I talked to Assemblywoman Warner last night, and she gave me a great idea, and that's why it's good having meetings like this and meetings like that, where I'm going to look with our records management vendor to see if we can flag people's addresses that where they have someone who might have autism or might have another condition that we should be aware of when we're responding to deal with that person, so that we know that there might be an issue there, and we have to take that into consideration when we're dealing with that person. So that's a very important. Honestly, that training came out of an incident that happened nationally with someone who had autism that police used force on. So, when we saw that, we reached out, and we had someone from Niagara University come and teach our deputies on how to deal with people that are emotionally disturbed or have autism.
Excellent. That's great.
And this is a slide I'm talking about. It goes a little more in depth into that disability awareness training. And this just lists what the objectives were and what was covered. And then procedural justice is a topic it's in the executive order. We're actively looking for training in that sense, but it's also something that we recognize and we agree with for sure. I think procedural justice is an excellent topic. It is taught in the academy, and it's something that a lot of these things, it's difficult to find instructors for that, state by state basis kind of thing. But we're very fortunate here to have several instructors that are certified that can teach all different kinds of topics, but they have to go be trained themselves first to teach in those topics. So we're making a list of where we think we need to have our some of our instructors learn some different topics, and this is one of them. But again, it's certainly an excellent idea.
Jeff, can I interrupt for 1 second?
Sure.
It might be helpful for you to just talk a little bit about how when you hire a new person and there is an academy that they have to go to be trained, and that sadly not all agencies put their new hires through academies. So it might be I know certainly as somebody who is sort of coming up to speed on how the mechanics of law enforcement work, it was news to me that was not the case. So it might be helpful to just get a sense of perspective that the training that you provide to your officers is actually very rigorous, and that's not always the case. And it should be, but it isn't always the case. So you may want to just give people a sense of perspective about that.
Yes, thank you. And that's a difficult topic, but it's something that why, for instance, when I talked about earlier, why I didn't want to push back against the executive order, or why I think it's important, is because you're right. We have a very stringent process when it comes to recruitment, and when we hire someone, we're bound by civil service law, which is that we have to take someone off of a civil service list that's in the top 3. But what we do is we have interview panels where we ask the recruit a set number of questions, and then we score them. The panel scores them, and we use the interview process or the interview as part of the hiring process, which also includes psychological testing and also includes physical fitness testing, but a complete background. And the background investigation that we do on recruits is lengthy, to say the least. We assign the background investigation to an investigator, and that investigator does a complete and thorough background on any applicant and any recruit that we're looking at possibly hire, including talking to their neighbors and all different kinds of things like that. So yeah, we're very confident that when we choose someone to wear our uniform and put our badge on, that they're going to do the job that we expect them to do. And then they don't see the road patrol for at least 6 months, because we don't put anyone on the street with a gun or keys to a car until they've successfully graduated from a police academy. There's only 5 police academies in Schenectady. So it's very difficult to do that. When we hire people and we send them to that academy for 6 months, we don't see them. And when they come back, I shouldn't say we don't see them. We don't see them working on the road. And when they come back, then they're put through a field training process with us, where basically people that are certified on our department to oversee and supervise new recruits, they ride with them until they feel, and they evaluate them daily until they feel that they're properly trained and ready to go. So yeah, we're pretty proud of that whole process for sure.
Sheriff, how many officers do you have, by the way? I'm just curious.
So I have 24 deputies. We have 6 sergeants. We have 2 lieutenant positions. Captain.
Okay.
We have 6 investigators, criminal investigators. I believe it's 6, maybe 7. Should know that off the top of my head. So we're in the 40s for
Okay.
total, and then we're supplemented with some part-time deputies that again have to meet the same training and requirements that others do. That
Okay.
mainly work in our civil office, who serve civil summonses and work
Right.
on evictions and things like that.
Okay.
So yeah, total number of staff is 174 between the jail, the road, part-time, and also with civilian staff, administrative, clerical, stuff like that.
Okay.
Kitchen employees, nurses. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's pretty big operation, and a lot of people are surprised to hear that as well. And that's
Yeah.
Jeff,
Great. Thank you.
I'm curious, how many officers do you have on the road overnight?
Well, it's a good question. When I started, there was sometimes only 1, and then 2 or whatever. But we changed the schedule around a little bit, and we have some different shifts now to help ensure coverage during certain times. And that's actually part of the executive order as well, is to deployment and how agencies look at how you're deploying people. So we have some different shifts, and is just to break it down, we have a 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. shift, but then we have a 2 p.m. to midnight shift. So there's a little bit of an overlap there, where we have some extra people on. So obviously it's busier then. Then we have a 5 p.m. to 3 a.m. shift, and then we have a 9 p.m. to 7 a.m. shift. So basically from 3 o'clock in the morning until 7 o'clock in the morning, there's only a couple of deputies on, but between 9 and 3 o'clock in the morning, there's more deputies on. So we've tried to schedule these different shifts so they overlap. And the county's pretty quiet at night, luckily for us. But you have to have people in place to answer calls and be safe and have someone back them up because, you know, we rely on the state police as well to work with us. And I think they only have one car out of Greenwich and one car out of Granville. So really, you know, like from 3 a.m. to 7 a.m. in the morning, there might be only 4 total patrol cars out in the whole county of 876 square miles. So,
Yep.
But it's worked out well for us because during those other hours, which are kind of peak hours, when we look at our calls for service, we feel that we have, you know, adequate patrols that are in place during those hours.
Thank you.
And then that talks a little bit about the demographics. And what we did is we went back and looked at our arrest data over the last 4 years and what our records management system will give us. And if you can see it, it's a little blurry on my screen, but in 2017, we arrested 585 people. And it looks like 551 of those were white, 28 were black. And then 3 were unknown. I'm not sure why I think it's if the officer didn't put in what the race was or whatever. But this, again, this isn't countywide. This is just the sheriff's office. And take into account also that those numbers could be the same person be arrested more than once.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a, you know, and then the numbers are similar year to year, which is a good thing in my opinion.
Yep. Is there any data that's not arrest-based, like interactions or calls or anything like that, Sheriff, that you have?
No, we
Okay.
don't. Yeah, we don't keep records like we have like total calls for service, which is usually in the 14 to 15,000 range
Okay.
per year.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay. Yep. Just curious. Thank you.
Sure. And then that talked a little bit about our law enforcement diversion program, which, you know, fortunately with the district attorney, you know, we work very well together, and we work also very well with alternative sentencing, Mike Gray, and through Tony Jordan, Mike Gray, and myself, you know, we came up with this idea, especially when we're in the midst of the heroin issue, where, you know, we might have someone who, if they weren't addicted to heroin or whatever, may have not committed the crime that they were charged with. And, you know, whether it was they're stealing money from someone to pay for their habit or whatever, you know, the best place for them, in our opinion, wasn't in my jail. You know, the treatment would probably be the best course of action for that person. So we looked at alternatives to incarceration, and also even included it to the point where maybe we don't even need to arrest that person, so they don't go before a judge and be put into court. Obviously, that we're not talking about people that are dealing drugs or that have committed serious crimes, but if it's a first-time offender, for instance, that you know, committed a minor offense or a lower class misdemeanor or whatever, you know, maybe we can offer that person an alternative to incarceration in our jail, and give them the opportunity to go through treatment rather than sit in a jail cell. So, you know, that was something that we've been doing since then, and our deputies have been trained to look for those types of people. Yes, Alan.
Yeah, question about those diversions. Your comments reminded me, several years ago, I saw a presentation by the chief downstate in Columbia County.
Albany?
No, it was even south,
okay.
south of that. I think it was in Hudson Falls or Catskill or one of those towns. And they're doing a similar program, which I found very interesting. I know it's hard. He had some relationships with treatment programs where his officers, when they found that kind of individual, they would actually transport them directly to a facility. And his philosophy was he didn't care how far they had to drive them. They were going to, rather than send them into the criminal justice system, they would send them into a treatment program. Is that anything you never heard of, or is that any kind of relationship?
Oh yeah, that's where that came from, and that's where it came on that slide. And just an interesting side note was that the way I found out about LEAD is the way they call it, law enforcement assisted diversion. was because my son lived in Seattle at the time, and I used to read the Seattle news so that I have something in common to talk to him about on the phone when I would call him. And I saw that they were the first in the country really to come up with this LEAD idea, and they offered people treatment at the time of arrest as opposed to incarceration.
Well, that's it.
And they would have people come to the police station and take that person and bring them to treatment. So that's when I got with Tony Jordan and with Mike Gray, and we said, let's look into how we can do this. And we called Dave Sapper from the Center for Recovery. Luckily, they got money through OASIS, through the state. They bought a van to be able to transport people for treatment and different programs. And that's when that started, where we would refer people to the Center for Recovery that we either arrested or dealt with, and they would enroll them into their, I think it was called Outward Bound or something like that. And they would have, bring them out and do field trips and canoeing and hiking and all that stuff. And that's where we started that relationship with the Center for Recovery and Hometown versus Heroin. And we have, several success stories with, they're not all success stories, but it's just something that makes sense, So another thing that we changed after looking at the executive order was we've always had an internal investigation process and had the availability for people to file personnel complaints. And like I said, fortunately, we don't get any. So it's we're pretty lucky where we don't deal with this. So, but when we do, we have a very thorough complaint and investigative process policy. But one thing that I found that we're missing is like ability for the public to just contact us, whether it's good or bad. So we made this email address, contact sheriff at, and then the Washington County NY.gov, so that, but it's for compliments or complaints. So, hopefully it'll continue to just be more complimentary than complaint. But that is something new that we started, and it just, gives the public another way to contact us. We've always had an anonymous link that's on our page where people could go to give us information anonymously, or to anonymously report incidents that happen within the county. And that's always been there. But this really is specifically related to the executive order. It gives people a contact for, and this is what the lieutenant's showing here, is like report a concern from our webpage. And then you can go down here and click whatever type of, this is the anonymous one to report an incident for a crime or whatever. And that gets used a lot. I can tell you, we get a lot of use out of that information. It sends an email to our command staff and our sergeants, so automatically. So we all get notified when anybody clicks on that.
Wow, interesting.
Yeah, and then the new one that we did at contact sheriff at Washington County NY.gov, that one just goes to the command staff. So that goes to myself, the undersheriff, captain, the lieutenant, and my confidential secretary. So we get that, and that can be, as you can see, a complaint or a compliment. And if someone wants us to call them back, it has the contact information in there, so that we can contact that person.
Great.
Okay, we can go to the next slide. So yeah, this is, when you talked earlier about the kind of like the urban aspect, this is one of those ones that I feel kind of more related to a city, or, crime prevention through environmental design. And when looking at what we do, we do designated property checks throughout the county. Like when people go on vacation, they can call the office and give us the dates they're going to be gone, and we go do property checks at their house and have contact information in case we find something wrong if someone's trying to break in or anything like that. And that's, we call our house watch list. And it works with our records management system. And a lot of people take advantage of that. And it's a service that we're happy to provide. And then we have 3 canine units. We use those to go out and do different locations, different sweeps for people that ask for that. And then our school resource officers, that's something that I couldn't be more proud of. The fact that we're able to have uniforms working with kids in a positive way, and the school districts that have the school resource officers just love the fact that we're able to have them there. We have, we're very fortunate too to have the people that we have that have signed on to be school resource officers, and they're really projecting that positive law enforcement image to younger people. And the important part of that is that we're very careful in who we chose, first of all, obviously. But secondly, we're very careful when it came to how our policy reads as to what they do and what they don't do in the schools. And it's very clear that they don't take a disciplinary role. So they don't interject themselves in disciplinary actions within the school at all. In fact, if a student were to do something so bad that the school wants to press charges against them or whatever, that school resource officer isn't even involved in that. We'll have a different deputy that would come and handle that type of situation. So, it's very important to us that school resource officer is looked at, as more of a role model, and more of somebody that they can go to and talk to, and present that positive police image that we're trying to get across to especially children. And then just another way we use we have mobile speed enforcement signs that we can put out around the county. We do that quite a bit. People will call from different towns and say that vehicles are speeding on different roads, and we will send out a deputy with, I think we have 3 now, where we'll put them out in different locations, and we can actually get data as to how fast cars are going, what time they're speeding, and then we'll follow up with a car.
Oh, okay, sorry.
So then, we being an accredited agency, all of our policies and guidelines meet or exceed the recommendations of the Municipal Police Training Council. And we regularly, as part of that, we're required to review our policies and procedures at least once a year. So even though it's a very large police manual that we have, operation manual that we have, we frequently go through and update our policies. Like you saw, our use of force policy has been updated numerous times. And it's very important to do that. You have policy is one thing, but to have policy that hasn't been changed in 10 or 12 years really doesn't make sense. So, and we also get legal updates from the Sheriff's Association and from DCJS. And then an important thing is that all our policy is online as well for our deputies, so that if we update a policy, for instance, they can log in, they have to log in and read the policy and then click an acknowledgement that they've read it and that it's been updated. And then that's the way we can track, all our new policies that are put out. And also our training bulletins and videos or in-service trainings are also on that same site. And that's something that our county insurance, NYMER, did for us for free when we asked them, because they like the idea and they put it out statewide now. So other agencies are trying to do the same thing. Accreditation, this is one that I could keep you all here till 5 o'clock talking about accreditation, because very near and dear to my heart. I started within the accreditation program in 1994. And it was only a couple years after New York State adopted the program. And I at that time I worked for the Hudson Falls Police, and I worked to get them accredited. And then when I came to the Sheriff's Office, redid the manual for the Sheriff's Office, and then ended up getting them accredited in 2007. Sheriff Leclerc at the time hired me to come in and write the policies and help the agency get accredited. So This agency's been accredited since 2007. And then every 5 years after that, you have to be reassessed, which means they'll send 3 assessors out from DCJS and they'll go through your records for 3 days. So they stay in a hotel, come here for 3 days, go through all our policy, all our procedures, look at how we're doing things, and either approve or in some cases, unfortunately for some agencies, disapprove reaccreditation. And I'm happy to say that I'm an assessor. I'm one of those guys that goes out around the state, and I've probably done over 50 assessments easily since 1996. I think is when I started doing that, from Long Island to Buffalo, and it's really been valuable to me because I'll do the Suffolk County Police Department, which is 4,000 officers, and see all the different things that they do and their policies, and be able to bring something back and use it in our department here. Just to give you an idea, there's almost 600 law enforcement agencies in New York State, and only 130 of them are accredited. So of those ones that aren't accredited, some have tried and failed, some have been accredited and lost it, and some just don't care to try to be accredited. But it's extremely important, I feel anyways, to be held to a higher standard, and especially when it comes to law enforcement. And what it means is that you have to comply with 110 standards that the state has issued. And as you can see, the administration training, operational activities. And what happens is you have to have a policy. And not only do you have to have a policy, but you have to have documentation to be able to show those assessors that you're really doing what you say you're doing. So it's much like a hospital or a college or whatever, as far as accreditation. The line that I use a lot when people will ask, and they'll say, well, what does accreditation really do for you? And I say, well, if you had to send your children or child to the hospital, would you rather send them to a hospital that's accredited versus one that isn't? Or when they're going to college, would it be more important to send your child to a college that's accredited versus one that isn't? And when you look at it like that, and when you look at law enforcement, and I've talked to Carrie about this, I think that every agency should be required to be accredited, but unfortunately, I don't think that's possible. I think some agencies wouldn't be able to be accredited. But one thing that the Assemblywoman's working on after our discussions is having the state, when funding is available, whether through grants or otherwise, look at agencies that are accredited first as an incentive, so that maybe more agencies would want to become accredited if state funding was made available to those agencies to make the good ones even better.
As I think you pointed out, I want to reinforce, I think this is great. And the proof is in the final bullet there. That's what really matters. How, to what extent is your agency complying with the policies you have in place? And that's critical info. What is your data telling you? How do you do?
Well, I think, judging by the complaint and compliment process, what are you talking about as far as the assessments?
Yeah, the audit and inspection you do at the end.
We every 5 years, we've been accredited since 2007. So the overall, each one of those audits, the assessors have been very complimentary of the office and how we maintain our files. And it's not an easy task, in other words, you have to have 5 years worth of documentation. If you pick use of force, for instance, and again, like I said, it's one thing to have a policy, but it's another thing to be able to prove that you actually follow the policy. And so we have 5 years worth of documented use of force cases where they've been reviewed by a supervisor, for instance, where it's followed the policy, and we can say, here you go, here's one for 2017, here's some from 2018, here's some from 2019, et cetera. So that an assessor, when they're on site at our office, can go through those files and say, yep, okay, it looks like they're doing the right thing there, and it covers a lot of those high liability areas like pursuits, for instance. We have a very strict pursuit policy, and we call off, if you will, a supervisor has to be involved whenever someone flees from one of our deputies, for instance. And our policy is very strict. You know, we don't chase people around at high speeds for just any reason. You know, and more often than not, a supervisor will get on the radio and end that, stop that pursuit. But we've been doing it for so long now that, you know, under that way with a strict pursuit policy, that our deputies even know. You know, if somebody takes off from some minor offense, they're not gonna chase them. And if they do, somebody's gonna get on the radio and tell them not to. So you know, things like that, especially high liability cases, are very important that you have a policy and that you can show. And that is one of the requirements for accreditation. You have to be able to have the ability for a supervisor to evaluate the circumstances in a pursuit, for instance, and be able to stop that and say, no, that's not, we're not going to be chasing somebody around. You know? And I've said, I think our policy, maybe 6 or 7 pages or something like that. But when I talk to our supervisory staff, our sergeants, I say, you know, it really could come down to one statement, and that is it worth the car you're chasing running into a family of 5 in a car? That, you know, whatever, is it worth it? You're going to chase somebody, you know. So it could be just a very simple statement like that instead of 7 pages. But we have very few, knock on wood, and when something like that does happen, it's usually shut down immediately.
Sheriff, could I interrupt again?
Sure.
So, one of the things that you and I talked about a couple of times ago was you walked me through your personal well, first of all, you walked me through your software system and how it is connected to body cameras and car cameras and tasers and firearms, but then also your process for auditing on a you know, sort of random basis interactions between your deputies and the public. And I think it's a really powerful management model that is enabled by technology. And I would love to have you share that with the rest of the group, because I think it's a very, I think annual audits and periodic audits that are formal are important, but it's often the informal management-based reviews that really ensure that on a day-to-day basis, your deputies are performing to the standards that you've set.
Yeah, and it really starts with you know, the deputy answering the call and writing up a narrative in our records management system, which then every call has to be reviewed by a sergeant. So a sergeant will go in and look and say, okay, this deputy did this, and this, and he okays it. Then that goes to the lieutenant. Then the lieutenant looks at it and says, okay, I agree with the sergeant. You know, this is, we can pass that forward. And then, you know, as far as the body cameras go, and I said it to you before, that body cameras, you know, accreditation is probably right up there, 1 and 2 with body cameras is the best thing that ever happened to law enforcement. We've had body cameras forever, and we just recently upgraded our body cameras to newer technology, which allows us to, it actually has a sensor on the holster itself. So when a deputy draws his weapon, it starts the camera. If you turn the lights on in the patrol car, it starts the camera. If a deputy's camera is running and another deputy walks up, that the first deputy's camera turns on the second deputy's camera. You know? So it takes a lot of that required intervention, or whatever you want to call it, from the deputy, or especially in the heat of the moment where, you know, a serious incident's happening. You don't want to have to rely on the deputy to say, oh, I got to turn my camera on, you know. So we've tried to make sure that you know, those cameras are activated when they should be. But our policy is also very strict as to when the camera has to be on, which is basically any interaction with the public. So those are just little things that help us on that way. And to Carrie's point, routinely, myself and other members of the command staff anyways, will look at videos. You know, the system that we have, as you can see on the bottom line there, you know, thankfully the county agrees with me, and you know, because it was a big upgrade. It was $330,000. That includes tasers, our cameras, and the system to collect the videos and have the district attorney have a portal into that system and see all our data and all that stuff. So that really was helpful with discovery. But to Carrie's point, we'll review those videos randomly. Like I'll just, when I have time, which sometimes it's at home, to be honest with you, I'll look through, you know, a couple days worth of videos and just pick random ones and look at them. And I'm happy to say that I'll see deputies that'll walk by my office and they'll always be looking at the ceiling or looking away. For some reason, they want to make eye contact with me. But I'll yell to them and I'll say, hey, come on in here. And they, of course, you know, they think they're in trouble or whatever. And they'll say, you know, I was looking at one of your videos and I got to tell you, the way that you dealt with that citizen or that suspect or that person, you know, was great. And I really appreciate you and how well you interact with the public. And, you know, I make sure I reinforce that with our deputies, and other members of the command staff do as well. But we also use that because for training, because we might see something where we say, hey, you know, maybe that wasn't the best choice of, you know, whatever you did or how you did it, or even tactically, like, you know, maybe you exposed yourself, you know, in a dangerous way or whatever, you know, as far as your weapon or whatever, and being complacent or whatnot. But more often than not, it's positive things that we see that reinforce the different things that we do policy wise, and we can see very clearly by how the deputies or the sergeants are behaving with the public that it's just how we want it to be. And since we've had the cameras in place, I haven't had any complaints from people, but if we were, it's a very valuable tool for us to go in and look at the video and say, well, you know, well, actually, you know, that's not what the deputy did or said, because they said this. So that's why, you know, we want to have it. It really does ensure that our members are out there doing the right thing, so to speak, and presenting a positive image. In fact, I was just telling Carrie last night, one of the videos that we saw recently, and the deputy we didn't know about this incident, but he stopped a woman for speeding down on 22, 69 and a 55, so he was going pretty fast. Had a van with some little kids in it, and the deputy went up and talked with the woman, asked her where she was going. She was going to the food pantry to get diapers, and because she couldn't afford to buy diapers, and the food pantry gives diapers out to people, and she was in a hurry before they closed, and the diapers were gone. So the deputy gets back in his car and he pulls up the computer and he was, you know, looking at the different things that you have to do when you're going to give somebody a ticket. And instead of giving a ticket, he walked back up to the woman and he asked her again where she was going, and she explained it. And he looked in the car and she had little kids in the car. And he said, well, you know what? Follow me to the Dollar General. I'll buy you some diapers. So she followed him to Dollar General. He bought her some diapers. And we wouldn't even have known about that, you know. But I'll tell you, to watch that video, for instance, you know, is like I was saying, with far more often with videos that are positive interactions with the public. So that's the other thing you can't put a dollar figure on, you know, for body cameras. So
That's a great story.
yeah, and it was just the other day too. It's like a couple days ago.
Yeah.
And again, this one, the problem-oriented policing hotspot. Again, this is, I think, you know, more geared towards the urban area, but we do use our data to direct our patrols. Like if we see an increase in burglaries, obviously larcenies, things like that, we'll alert the post cars, the cars that handle that area, and say, you know, looks like we're having some issues, so, you know, kind of concentrate on that area. We've worked close with some other agencies too. We recently had a plan with the Hudson Falls Police, and we had an online sexual predator case where they arrested a whole bunch of people that were endangering some kids online and stuff. And then the other examples would be like Log Bay Day. You know, I think our concentrated efforts there pretty much put an end to all the issues that were happening in Log Bay Day. So, and then Eagleville, you know, continues to be an annual problem for us with people that are, you know, large crowds partying and drinking and stuff. So we'll direct patrols there and actually have deputies assigned to go down there and check on those areas. And then this list is just a list of some of the many programs, and I probably forgot some of them that we do. And some of the important ones, the Project Lifesaver, that's for people that tend to wander, whether it's adults or children. And we actually outfit them with, and it's free, we'll outfit them with a little device that they put on clothing. And if they were missing or lost, we have deputies that are trained with radio equipment to go out and locate them. And I'm happy to say we've had several instances where we found people, along with our drone program, which works in conjunction with that, where we can actually fly a drone with infrared technology to be able to find somebody if they're missing. But all the other stuff that we do, the Operation Safe Child, the Senior Citizen Scam and Awareness Training, that's a pretty popular one, where we have investigators and deputies that are specially trained to teach senior citizens scam avoidance, the internet type stuff that seems to be more prevalent lately. So yeah, that's the few of those slides were updated, and I'm going to use this as the model and then update it as we go along to meet the different requirements that are within the order. And like I said, Alan, I'll send this to you so that you have the most updated version of it. And then hopefully that's a PowerPoint that'll grow over time and meet each one of the requirements, so that when we get to the point of having the public hearing, we've reviewed the survey, and we've also met with groups like yourself and any others that come along, and all that input together will make this PowerPoint evolve into our plan. Yes, Ann.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you for this. It's really been significant for us to participate, and really appreciate it. I had a question that just kind of came to mind. Are you aware of any white supremacy groups in Washington County?
No, I'm not. And if they were, they'd be on our radar. I can assure you that. Yeah.
Okay.
Thankfully, I can say no.
Yes, I'm thankful too.
Yeah.
Well, if no one else has a question, I want to thank you again, Jeff. This is, as Ann said, very, very informative. And I think you would like, and I think I would like, the community to have a lot more of this information. So,
Oh, yeah.
It's important for us to all hear it.
Well, like I was saying, when I was talking to Carrie last night, I'd like to go out and talk to people, because I'm confident that, I can answer questions, and I'm not afraid that I'm going to get a question that's going to say, but what about this, Sheriff? Why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you doing that? I'm sure that we'll learn something through this process, and like I have already with the contact sheriff, for instance, that new thing, or even when talking to Carrie about flagging addresses for people with autism, things like that. I mean, that's why these meetings are important, and I see that, and I certainly want to engage all different kinds of groups within the county, so that we can, and it's not, honestly, it's not even so much meeting the governor's executive order as it is, being kind of another audit on the agency, like accreditation is, where we can say, we think we're doing a pretty good job, but maybe there's some things that we're missing. So let's look at those, and we're open to that for sure.
Well, I would share that hope, and reiterate the offer to help with this process. But I hope that after the executive order business is done, we can continue to be your partners.
Yep.
We may not agree on everything. We may argue with you about a few things, but that all makes all of us better, more informed, and more able to react
Sure.
positively in every situation. I'm sincere about that. I hope we can keep.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Thank you for taking the time to meet with us, Sheriff. Very, very interesting, very informative.
No problem. Thank you. And I'll send you an email, Alan, with the PowerPoint, and then we can discuss one another time within the next couple of weeks. We can definitely do this again, and you're more than welcome to invite anyone you'd like. And certainly we'll do it again for sure. I think it's been helpful to me. So in the long run, be helpful to everybody in the county.
Excellent.
Jeff, could I make a
Thank
suggestion?
you, Sheriff Murphy. Oh,
Jeff, do you have the survey as a PDF?
Yeah.
I'm wondering if you sent that PDF to Alan, if he would be able to email that to various people that might be interested in filling it out, just as a way to kind of expand the distribution of the survey.
Oh, yeah. And it's on our webpage too. The lieutenant's already jumping on there. It's on our webpage as well. Right there under quick links.
Uh-huh.
If you click on it, it'll pop the survey up. So I think you can print that out, but I'll send the
That's all I
PDF
got.
as well. I'll send it to you so you can distribute it to anybody. But yeah, we put it out there so that people can pull it right up on the quick link. And then we have the governor's executive order survey guide. That's the one we just went through. Basically, it's been changed now. That's not the one we just went through. But and then the other one on that webpage, when you tell people, is the 2019 annual report. That's a pretty thorough. I don't know if you had a chance to look at that or not, but that's a pretty thorough document that lists that we put together annually. Obviously, it's an annual report. So that has our staffing chart and all that, and includes information correct from all the different divisions. And we do that annually for the Board of Supervisors, and then we break it down by town as well. A lot of the statistics. So it's kind of interesting to
Interesting,
anyway.
yeah.
But yeah, it's a pretty comprehensive report, and I think it would be helpful for people when to look at that before they take the survey, for instance.
That's all great. Okay.
So yeah, sounds
Great.
good. So I'll email you,
All
and
right.
then hopefully we can come up with another date in the near future, and we'll do this again regularly. And as you said, continue to do it even after we submit our plan.
Excellent. Excellent. Thanks again, Jeff. Thank you.
Thank
very much.
you. Thank you,
All right.
everybody.
So long.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Sheriff Murphy. Thank you, Assemblywoman Werner, and congratulations on your reelection. Talk to you soon.